Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Got Will here today. Got a few pre-submitted questions, but I don't see any of those users in the chat yet. So give them a few minutes to join. If you do have any questions, use chat or QA or raise hand. And Adrian, if you could get those questions in the chat for me, please. All right, got a question here. Manal's not here. Got a question from Joseph. All right, Joseph, I'll let you talk if you want. How do you fetch case entities by state? Okay, that's a fair question. Let me create
Yeah, pretty much self-explanatory, but I couldn't find a step on it.
Yeah, it's not intuitive. Once it'll make sense, I think, once I show it to you, but we don't know that we make this super clear. Like, let me create a case really quick. Oops, excuse me, I didn't mean to do that. All right, let's create a thing called case test one with a single property called str1. The thing to understand is that in decisions world, the state is part of the folder, and a case is what we call a folder extension. It takes folder properties and then your custom case properties, and it merges them together. Sometimes, other times you have to treat them separately. One of the consequences of that is you need to understand where 516. You need to understand where like what property you're dealing with. So like, let me just add a case really quick. Add case, is this the right one? Oh man, I name these things. I don't know. I actually don't know if this is the right one. Well, we'll see. Actually, I think I can use folder view and see. Case, well, that doesn't really help me. All right, and so what I'm going to do is create a flow here, and then we're going to use a fetch entities step. And on fetch entities, what I want to do is my base type here is going to be folder, and my extension type is going to be my case data type, which is going to be lunch and learn 516. Now, and then once I have both of those on there under fetch criteria, I can add and then find state. The reason this won't show up for you before is because state doesn't live on case test. In my example, case test one, it lives on the folder.
Yeah.
Right. And now I'll give that, and I could say constant equals, ASDF, and then that'll give me all cases in that particular state.
Gotcha.
So you have to kind of have to pay attention you have to understand how we extend types and then how to leverage that extension understanding into kind of properly configuring a fetch entity step. And that same thing applies to anything like entity name, folder case name, or created on date, or created by, or deleted on. All those things are part of the folder object. And so if you extend, you get both. And now what it does is you'll see your outputs here. You have entity extension, which will be the case object, and entity results, which is the list of folder. So sometimes you might need to handle those. So you might do something like, it's not uncommon to see a design like this where you for each and then use like get item by index. And that way you could like loop the folders and then get the extension object list by its index, so that in the loop you could have a case and its extension data sort of together to do whatever you might need to, whatever you might need to.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And then is there like get the current state for a folder step? I know it's tied to the folder as we just did, but is there like the current state as far as steps go? It looks like it's get states, so it's plural.
I see. So yeah, you could do this like so. In this example, we could kind of do something similar. Let's just say folder.
Just
I don't know.
fetch
I'll
the
leave the case
folder.
off,
Uh-huh.
right? And here I might fetch by. Let's assume I have its folder ID, right? And
Yeah,
then under as when the results that come out, you're going to get either like you could do path for one if you know there's only one, and get a single one, which just kind of makes you get a folder, and the folder would have a state. So if you like in
yeah.
your like maybe there's a trigger flow and you want to check the state, if make sure it's not X, Y, or Z. Well, then you could fetch it, even though the trigger flow has the folder data available for you already. But this I would recommend using fetch entities for those types of fetches as well, instead of some bespoke steps. Yeah, Vitaly's offering to use folder service steps, which is true, but you shouldn't need to use those. Fetch entities is going to be a better, more maintainable approach here, I think.
Appreciate it.
Is that everything you got for us today?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, man. All right, we got Vitaly, I'm not sure about your question yet, so I'm going to try to answer Manal's here. And I'll give you a chance to talk. I'm using a guest session to allow external users to submit the form. Whenever I use the URL for my personal computer, it requires me to enter a username or password. Is there any way to get the link directly to the form? So your URL has user ID equals guest, but you're still getting prompted for login?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And have you confirmed that you've like the guest account is active, and in settings you've allowed guest account? There's a few prereqs
mm-hmm.
that you have to do to make sure the guest account is like fully allowed.
Gotcha. Because I just went in the group and it looks like the group accounts, and then I went into the service accounts. No, it's not service accounts. Which account is it?
So I think there's two places to check here. If you look at system security, you should see under accounts, you'll see guest. And I think you need to edit that and set it to be active. That's one piece. You need to make sure the guest account is active. And then in system settings, portal settings, maybe? I'm not sure. Let's search for guest here.
Settings.
And then enable guest account also has to be true in portal settings.
Gotcha. So you just went to settings, and then in the portal settings?
Yeah, correct. Portal settings here on my screen, row 31. And then search for guest and enable guest account.
Portal settings, edit, and then guest, enable guest account. Gotcha. So I'm getting the warning which says like current password settings are insecure. Is that okay? Or do I have to just set up a new password for the guest account?
It doesn't actually have a password. Does it let you save does it let you save it or not?
Let me see.
That's kind of stupid, honestly.
It lets me save it, yes.
Oh, then you can ignore that, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
It doesn't have a password at all.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So when I do the user interface and give them the link, it will directly take them to the form without actually like making them log in or anything.
Correct. Now, I would probably recommend a named session over the guest account. Gives you a little bit more control. And you could have a URL that uses the named session as the authentication instead of allowing the guest account. There's a lot of docs about using named sessions. Ultimately, it would kind of be the same generic. It would be the same thing for an end user, but you wouldn't have to allow the guest account at all. You could keep that disabled.
Gotcha. So what happens whenever you enable it, it doesn't do anything with the other accounts, right? It just allows people to use just that user interface only for the guest.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. And I'll just try with that. Thank you so much. That's all my question was.
Okay.
I'm sorry, well, one quick question I had was, so I was using the help message, and whenever I add a picture in it, like an image,
Yeah.
it doesn't show in the help message.
Yeah, that's only going to render plain text today, unfortunately. You can't get like rich text to display in help messages on any version of the product today.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So you can't put any images in it.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. Gotcha. Do you know if there's any way you can edit? Is there any other icon I can use?
You'd have to do something completely custom, like a sub dialog button next to your something. I mean, next to your control that shows a pop-up, which is a decisions form with custom content. That's kind of your only option right now with help text to do sort of more fancy help text information.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Okay, and all right, Vitaly, can I read SNS messages like SQS? What is SNS? I don't know anything about SNS. Is that like is that another message queue architecture? SNS versus SQS. Key differences. SNS, simple notification service. I don't know that we have a connector to SNS today. Simple queue service. What's in our AWS module? Maybe. AWS. Sure, yeah, simple. You can post to SNS. Is it so on like what on a post a message step? Maybe you can use SNS as an option. Post string, post SQS, post to SNS topic. Okay, and this comes from where? This is from integration AWS SNS. Okay. So we have SNS steps. We have a post step. SQS, we have a post, which means you can probably connect to SNS as a queue. So if I look at jobs and events, message queues, I can, oh no, SNS is different, isn't it? Or AWS is different here for no reason at all, isn't it? Edit, use SNS, yeah, you should be able to connect to it. You have to specify, these are slightly different than our normal message queues. You're saying you can't create one? We can add a queue here for SNS. We just say, well, let me blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Okay. SNS, save. Oh, yeah. Blah, 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 blah. But you cannot create a handler for SNS. That's just a bug then, if that's true. Here's message queue. How do I add my S? So let me do this for SQS, I guess is what you're saying, huh? SQS, use SQS, blah, blah, blah. Okay, blah, 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 boom. Save. Message queues. I still can't create a message queue. Someone was telling me how these are different for some unknown reason recently. Message handler, I can add a message handler and I can specify, so I can only specify the SQS one. Interesting. I think this is just a bug. You should be able to. There should be no reason why we can't do one or the other. It's just maybe we hadn't considered it. So now that I've created SQS, I have steps, but all right now I can do is post. So I don't think you can today, maybe with PowerShell or something stupid, but if you get a support ticket in, I'm sure that we could take that on as a feature request, but it doesn't look like it today, no. All right, anybody else got any questions for us today? In fact, let me submit a ticket to QA for that really quick, to DT Express. All right. Could be Vitaly. It's hard to know without. I would assume it's as likely that we had a request to post messages to SNS and we added that to the AWS module without thinking through what, since we were working on SNS, what other things should we do with SNS now that we're adding that capability of the product? That'd be my guess as to why there's a difference in the steps there. Not that it's intentional, but that it's just all right, let me know what other questions you guys have. Okay, looks like the crowd has shrunk a bit here and we don't have any other questions. So just do a last call here and call it a day if everyone's done. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Tomorrow we should have Mr. Jared, and then Thursday we have Ashley. And just a note, we won't have any decisions day. Excuse me. We won't have any lunch and learn next week because most of the company will be on site for our user event in Virginia Beach. Our decisions days event is coming up next week, so we won't have any lunch and learns at all next week. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.